Yeah, okay. I restarted it and I ran a speed test just to be sure. I'm still on an ad right now, but uh, it should be. It looks a little bit like I'm not. I don't see any drop frames yet. About a minute into this new rebroadcast, so let's go from here. I'll try to make it quick. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Drop them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. And we'll do this quickly, so we don't have too many problems because it might be my internet, might be Twitch, but let's just get going. What I was saying was in terms of quarterbacks coming back from buys this week, or not buys, injuries. We have Ben Roethlisberger potentially coming back, and there's Tony Romo still a few weeks away. But those are probably the two that people are most looking forward to. Even quarterbacks that have had not statistically great seasons so far, like Matt Stafford had a really good weekend. So there's a lot of quarterbacks out there. I know a lot in a few leagues people have dropped Matt Stafford, so he might be available. He was playing very poorly up until this point, so you never really know, but those kind of things kind of can come into effect. But oh, you rolled the dice with Stafford since Tyrod Taylor was injured. Lucky. I was in the Peyton Manning situation, like I was saying, and he did. He didn't have a great game, but he did like just enough. I was going against an Eli Shane Vereen combo, so I ended up salvaging a fantasy victory there. Even though I think I only had like a 15-point lead going into Monday night, and they end up combining for I think like 12 point something points. So I ended up winning by 5. I'm probably gonna drop Peyton. I only kept him this week because of the injury situation. He's on bye this week, so even if Tyrod and Ben both aren't able to go, even though it's really trending towards Tyrod playing, even if they both were unable to go, I would still have to look for a quarterback elsewhere. So I'm probably going to drop him anyway. I offered him in a couple of like easy trades for like RB3s, wide receiver fours, that kind of level. Just somebody who's serviceable, maybe a flex spot guy. But nobody really needs Peyton as a quarterback. Peyton's really low end right now in terms of what you can get. There's waiver wire quarterbacks that are better in a 12-team league. Like I would say Ryan Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback. I've been talking about him for a couple weeks, but him and Brandon Marshall continue to click. He had a really good game against Washington. That's kind of to be expected. But as you saw, Andrew Luck playing against New England, New England's secondary is vulnerable. So he's somebody who's going to throw an interception or two, but also has the potential to, really get you a lot of fantasy points. The other two quarterbacks, Josh McNown, who's been, crushing it, but people were wary of the matchup last weekend, which is understandable. He was going against Denver. But he throws 2 touchdowns really consistently. Yeah, the thing is, New England's defense isn't as strong as we're used to. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're understanding that you're going to put a quarterback in who's probably going to throw an interception or two. The thing is that New England likes to take away the strongest part of the other team. And for the Jets, that's their running game. So I feel like they'll focus on Chris Ivory, stack fronts. That's kind of Belichick's thing. He figures out what's the best part about the other team and then focuses on that. And if a team is good enough to adapt and beat him, so be it. But there just aren't that many teams like that. So I feel like they'll really stack up against the run. Maybe bring a lot of pressure and blitzes to try to slow the running game or to frustrate Fitzpatrick. But at the same time, I think that allows for a lot of stuff on the outside. And because of how well Brandon Marshall is playing, because of Eric Decker being there, I feel like it's a decent game for Ryan Fitzpatrick because the secondary of the Patriots can be beat. They haven't had really tough opponents, but they've still been giving up a lot of yards through the air. Um, especially because they don't have a true shutdown corner like they did previous years. I mean, Malcolm Butler's a good corner, as we saw in the Super Bowl, but he's not, a shutdown Revis type corner. They lost a lot of people over this last season, like last free agency. So I think the Patriots are vulnerable. It's a tough game. I'll give them that. And the Jets tend to perform poorly against the Patriots. At least that was the Rex Jets. But I would give Ryan Fitzpatrick a try in a pinch. There's a couple quarterbacks who I think might be better than him in going forward in terms of I may give Matt Castle a look. He's going against the Giants. The Giants are without their top corner in Prince Akamukamora. I would keep Stafford for now just to see if he can. Like, the thing is, it's not that Stafford was bad. It's not that Stafford's a bad quarterback. It was just that he was so woefully underperforming this year that I've seen him dropped in 10-team leagues because he was just performing so poorly. And then there were quarterbacks like Josh McCown who were tearing up the stat sheet. McCown, sorry. But I would keep Stafford. One, because the Lions play teams with like Minnesota and Green Bay have good defenses, but they're not unbeatable. And then when you look at the rest of the NFC, yeah, there was a lot of things that I would say went into the Detroit Lions' struggles in the first 5 games. Part of it, I feel like, is their running back situation. They're going with Abdullah because Joique Bell's been hurt for so long, and Abdullah really doesn't get you. He's a quick runner. He's a slasher, but he doesn't get you those tough yards that Joique Bell would get you. Joique Bell also has some hands out of the backfield that would be utilized. That kind of opens up that offense a little bit. But they have so many weapons that I feel like they can be a really good offense. You have Calvin Johnson. You have Golden Tate. You have Eric Ebron, who, even with the Stafford struggles, have been doing okay and was worthy of an ad for a couple games early on in the season. So that combined with the schedule, the Lions moving forward aren't a terrible play. Like, I would keep Stafford. I don't you put a decent draft pick into Stafford. He's worth keeping for now. Because even when you look at the players that I'm mentioning, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh McCown, potentially Matt Castle because of the matchup, Brian Hoyer, 1 because of matchup, and 2 because of how well DeAndre Hopkins is playing. They have Cecil Shorts back. Those are kind of your 4 waiver wire quarterbacks in my mind. And this is a 12-team league situation. But so in a 10-team league situation, you might have a Joe Flacco available or Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, I don't like the matchup. Joe Flacco, I don't like the matchup. So those are kind of the quarterbacks we're talking about, and I don't think Stafford loses to any of those. In my mind. Yeah, I feel like the bye for Tyrod is one thing that you should be concerned about, just because if you drop Stafford, he's going to be picked up, especially after the week that he had, just because people will think he's turning that corner, whether he is or isn't. I feel like if you want to do something with Stafford, offer him in a trade after this great week. I mean, somebody who's needy of a quarterback might be willing to give you something more than he's worth. Just because they're like, oh shoot, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's a Matt Stafford I'm familiar with. Let me go get him. Let me give you something for him. Especially when you can say, oh, it's a schedule early on. He's starting to come into his own. The offense is starting to click. Joique Bell's going to be back soon. It's all coming together for Stafford. I got him off the waiver wire, but he's worthy of a starting spot. So there's those 2 ways of looking at it: either trading him or keeping him for bye weeks. I know you have a shorter bench than most people do, so I can understand not wanting to carry 2 QBs, but I think Stafford is one you would want, and you're not going to find much better on the waiver wire unless it's a matchup based thing. And going into the bye week, I always have trouble with bye weeks for star players. Quarterback's not really one of the positions that I'm usually hurting for, but my RB1 like this week I struggled, not because my RB1 is Doug Martin, but because Doug Martin has been really consistent over the past 3 weeks for me, like being very, very good. I'm on like a 4-game winning streak in the money league, and Doug Martin's been a part of that, like a big part of that, like 33 points fantasy game last week, or not last week, but the week before. Um, right now, because I have Tyrod Taylor and Ben Roethlisberger, it really depends on injury. If Tyrod's good to go this weekend, I'll start him. If Ben's good to go this weekend, I'll probably start Tyrod because I think the matchup is worse for Ben. And a lot of people are saying Ben is, going to practice but not play. But if there's one of those two that are available for me, I'm probably dropping Peyton. I'm not dropping him right away because there's a couple of other players I can drop right away in that league. I picked up the backup for Justin Forsett in that league in case Justin Forsett couldn't go this weekend. So he's gonna be dropped first, the backup, and then I'm probably gonna do a streaming defense this week. So those are the two things that I'm prioritizing. But if later on in the week something is appealing, or somebody drops somebody on the waiver wire that I have an interest in, then I'll drop Peyton for that player. Or if Tyrod Taylor or Ben Roethlisberger are trending on being injured, then I'll drop Peyton for a QB. But otherwise, I'm gonna probably hold firm with those two. I feel like that's a good combination between Tyrod Taylor and Ben Roethlisberger when they're both healthy. Yeah, Buck Allen. Yep, took the same thing. Yeah, Forsett. Though I thought about keeping Buck Allen, but he's not. He's not the running back I would handcuff in my league, just because I have some decent running back options. Eddie Lacy needs to get healthy for me, but after that, I have Justin Forsett. I have Doug Martin. I also have the replacement for Jamal Charles and Chikandrick. So I feel like that the running back. Yeah, sure. The team that I'm I think I showed you guys my this is the current team that I'm running with in my money league. The reason, and as you can see, it's a much deeper. Yeah, Charmander. That's perfect. We're calling him Charmander from now on. Just so you know, that's perfect, and we're going to call him Charmander from now on. So Charmander was my flex this past weekend. He didn't do that well, but as you can see, like in terms of running backs, Eddie Lacy, Justin Forsett, Charmander, Doug Martin, and who am I missing? Oh, and Javoris Allen, Buck Allen. So that was I was worrying on the flex here. Because Justin Forsett has been a really good flex for me. Especially these past 3-4 weeks. Three weeks is the winning streak I'm on. Because we're in week 6. I started poorly in this league. Really because of quarterback play. Ben Roethlisberger helped me week 1. But I started with Peyton Manning, and then I tried to rein it. This is my more competitive league because everybody's active. Everybody's doing something every week. And we have like a group me where everybody talks and texts, and we do Skype calls and stuff. So this is the more competitive league. This is the league that is with most of my college friends who we talk to often. This one isn't like a pug league like the Twitch one that we set up. That's why I usually show this one's waiver wire, because it's more bare. So it gives people a better understanding of what's probably out there for their league. But the one position that, like, wide receiver was weak for me. But I survived with a win Brandon Marshall's bye week. And Brandon Marshall has been probably the most consistent wide receiver in fantasy. Um, he has yet to have a game under 12 fantasy points from the wide receiver position. He's had a touchdown in all but one game so far this season. Yeah, he's been amazing. And he was such a low draft pick for me. I want to say he was around 6 or 7. Like, he didn't cost me a lot at all. So, for him to be a number 1 top 5 wide receiver with a bye week is kind of crazy. Yeah, he's on your favorite team. Like that would hurt. Like last year, last year I won this league. And I think like between all the money we put in, it was like a $500 pot for the championship. I won this league mainly because I picked up Odell Beckham Jr. as the last pick in the draft and held on to him until he came back from injury, and he just ran the table for the rest of the season. And it was the same situation. I'm always probably like a wide receiver away. I actually traded for Travis Benjamin, and I traded one of the running back that I feel like is probably going to do me the least good. I traded Latavius Murray, who had been okay, but had never really had the breakout, and I didn't want to get rid of Doug Martin, just because this was still when Doug Martin was struggling. But now I feel like the Bucks understand what they have to do with him, and Doug Martin's been killing it. Ivory is doing great. Ivory's doing great. I mean, Ivory might be Ivory's top 3 right now, I think. He's up there. Well, maybe not anymore with the bye week, but he was crushing it. He had like his previous high was in the 190 yard range with 2 touchdowns. He had a great game the week before the bye. How'd you replace Ivory? That's an interesting question, because that's what I struggle with, replacing like my top RB. Like I made it through this week with Doug Martin being out and Justin Forsett being a little injured, and Eddie Lacy still performing badly. I'm hoping the bye week gets him healthy enough so that he can take back RB1 duties. I knew it was a really good game against Miami. I didn't play against that dude. Both the TD. Like, he's been just doing so good. And New England is a tough matchup, but I still think he's got a strong shot. I mean, Gore ran hard against New England, so I feel like Chris Ivory can, especially how the Jets are opening holes for him. So, but yeah, going to the player list again. Yeah, we talked about quarterbacks. The running back situation's a little bit dry in my mind. Yeah, Darren McFadden. Yeah, I can see that. Like that's such a come down. Like, it's hard at the RB1 position because there are so few studs like that. Yeah, Darren and our like you saw in this league that I'm playing in, it's 1 RB, which I don't necessarily agree with, but you have 2 flexes that I usually put RBs in. So I usually am heavy RB. But this week against St. Louis, I'm going to keep rolling with Travis Benjamin. I benched him last week because of matchup. And I won it last week, but it wasn't a good week in terms of points. Mainly because of the quarterbacks, but Charmander, I'm, considering playing, but I kind of want to see what I do on the waiver wire, because there's a couple players that I'm looking at. Like, Jason Wynn's available, and I can start a second tight end, and if Matt Castle's in the game, he might, he's not available in my league. He's not available in my week, although he might be, because people are holding help. Like, the person who's holding on to him is probably going to need help with this bye week. The one thing that I'm interested in seeing with the Cowboys this week is kind of twofold. It's him starting, and Castle as the quarterback. What he brings, like the Cowboys O line, we know that they're a known commodity. They're a good O line. It's just right now they're suffering from Adrian Peterson syndrome without Adrian Peterson. Everybody's loading the box because they know Brandon Weeden can't throw a 10-yard pass. So if Castle brings kind of a threat of a deep ball to the game, it opens up the possibilities for some players who've lost fantasy relevance who are probably out there for you. Like Terrence Williams is a name that comes to mind that I would be eyeing just because if Castle can, deliver, he's going to need a wide receiver one, and Williams is that player for the Cowboys while Dez is out. For Dez is probably he was eyeing this week against the Giants, but I don't think that's happening because I haven't seen any practice reports that say he's out there. But Terrence Williams is somebody I was thinking of, just because I do have the running backs to play. How did he do last week? He was one of the people that I eyed before his bye, and I didn't pay attention to the Vikings game this week. I again was out of town, but I was able to do Friday show before I left. Because he's somebody who I'm pretty sure is out there. Let's go back to the waiver wire. And the wide receiver position. Yeah, he's here. Oh, 129 yards. Not bad. Not bad. And he's got a good matchup this week against Detroit. Yeah, he's definitely... Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. And Johnson's rib injury, I know this is a little old because it's from like this morning, but Johnson's rib injury is still a concern. Plus, he's got like Detroit, Chicago. Those are two. Detroit's got an up and down defense, but Chicago's a very good matchup. So yeah, I think he's usable. That might be the way to go for this week. You've been watching all his games? Yeah, I've heard great things about him, and he was somebody I was thinking about picking up before the bye. But yeah, and as somebody whose team needs a wide receiver, he might be the way to go. Well, let's go through running backs real quick so I can get to wide receiver. But in the running back position, the only players that I think you can look at are maybe Chris Thompson as a pass catcher. He had a bad week this week, but so did the Redskins. But next week they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a very soft defense. So that's somewhere to go if you need some immediate help. Like if you're in a Darren McFadden situation where you have to have a running back out there but don't have a good one. The only other option, like Lamar Miller is here, but against Houston, I just don't like anybody going against that Houston front. J.J. Watt, potentially Clowney back. Yeah. Antonio Andrews is now the starter in Tennessee. Tennessee's going against Atlanta. Atlanta's defense is beatable, as we saw in the Saints game this past week. They're going to have a long time to prepare for Tennessee, but Antonio Andrews might be worth a start. He had a bad game against Miami, but he's a back out of the backfield dude. He splits touches. He's got a chance to do something, and the matchup is better against Atlanta, especially because they're at home. They were at home against Miami, but Miami had been playing poorly this year. Yeah, there's a lot of handcuffs there. There's not much starting potential, but there's a little bit there if you have to have somebody. I'm trying to think. There was one other player. Oh, Toby Gerhart started Um, but Denard Robinson played a large role. They were down, but they're going against Buffalo, and I just like Buffalo's front seven again. So it's kind of like a Houston situation where him and Denard Robinson. I think Denard Robinson provides you more upside in terms of his kit, his speed. He had the role prior to the draft of T.J. Yeldon. Um, so there's very little here, but those are some of the people that I would suggest if you had to have somebody. Out wide receiver, again, this is 10-team league, so these players all might not be available, but Pierre Garçon against Tampa Bay is a good matchup. Uh, Eric Decker is a good matchup against New England. Again, mainly because if the Patriots hold to form, they're going to try to take away the main weapon of the Jets. I feel like that's the running game, but they might say it's Brandon Marshall, so they might focus on him. And wherever their focus is, that other side usually gets a lot of work, and that's Eric Decker. Eric Decker is a great number 2 there. That's why I think I feel like the Jets have a good chance against the Patriots. I don't know if they're not favorites in my mind, but I feel like they've got a good chance because they have all the tools on offense that they haven't had in a long time, and their defense is still really good and getting stronger with people coming back. So. That's probably going to be a really good game to watch, too. But in terms of other players that are out there, Ruben Randall is still going to get number 2 work. I feel like Victor Cruz is still a couple weeks away from returning from his injury. And despite the poor showing last night, from a fantasy perspective, a good game, yeah, it can. I feel like the way the Patriots stay in it against the Jets is if they can do if the Patriots can do something against the Jets offense or Jets defense, because I feel like the Patriots defense can only limit the Jets so much. The Jets have a good running game, strong offensive line, 2 very good receivers. Their limitation is probably Fitzpatrick at quarterback. Fitzpatrick's such an upgrade over Geno Smith. Yeah, I don't think a shootout's likely, but I still feel like it's in that 20-24 point range. Like, I feel like each team is in that, like the final score could be 24-20. Or 17-24, somewhere in that range. I feel like there's going to be maybe a touchdown or 2 on each side, and then a couple of field goals decided. So, I mean, when you're talking about the Jets offense, where is that touchdown or 2 going to do? If we look at, the prior games, it's going to be 1 for Marshall, 1 for Ivory. Just looking at how it's been spread. But I could see Eric Decker being the passing touchdown, or I could see it being like 1 defensive touchdown for the Patriots. So, yeah, I feel like that 24-17 range is where we're going to see that final score on. I'm not sure what Vegas has the over-under at, but I would say the over-under is probably in the 40 to 42 point range. If I had to guess. In terms of other wide receivers, I mentioned Cecil Shorts only because DeAndre Hopkins is going to start being a draw in terms of how defenses are going to have to approach him, because he's plus 10? That's really high. That's really high. I don't see it being plus 10 at all. No way. No way is it 10. In my mind, I don't think it's a 10-point game. I would say 3.5 is probably where it should be. 3.5, 4.5, somewhere in there. 3.5 being 3.5, 4.5 because it's somewhere between a touchdown difference and a field goal difference in my mind. Somewhere in that range. But But as you see in the other wide receiver position is like Willie Snead, Tavon Austin, Marvin Jones is on a bye, but he's somebody to look at going forward. Yeah, 9.5 is still too much in my mind. But Alan Hearns, I feel like has been very well. He had a poor week this week, but still had a touchdown, so he saved his week, and he's being targeted a lot. He only caught 2 passes this week. One was for a touchdown, but he had 7 targets. So when you look at the target listing, Alan Hearns is a good player to go and get. Willie Snead, I think, is being used in a lot of the ways that Lance Moore once was. And I don't think Ben Watson's 12 targets is going to continue. So I think Willie Snead makes sense, especially because I feel like New Orleans has got to have some kind of rhythm, especially with the Atlanta win. Now you actually have not some swagger, but they have a sense of confidence. They're still kind of in the division. Maybe not the division race, but in the wild card race, they're still hanging around other teams. 2 wins is not great, but at the same time, you have an NFC East where the top 2 teams are 3-3. So they're not completely out of it. And then you have a lot of other divisions where you have one team and then a bunch of bottom feeders. Yeah, Ben Watson, I would say that, except that yeah, Ben Watson, who's your other tight end? Because that really determines whether or not grabbing Ben Watson makes sense. Because Ben Watson, in my mind, is, an interesting ad, but that was kind of an anomaly game. At home against Atlanta. Yeah. Yeah, Kelsey, I don't think you're going to start. And Kelsey is the only offense that Kansas City has had in this season, really. I think he's still top 5. Where is he? I was looking at this earlier. All players. Yeah, he's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he's the 5th best tight end in fantasy. He probably feels disappointing after his hot start, but honestly, the tight end position has been poor anyway. So, because the tight end position has been poor, because it's been so poor this season, it's kind of hard to be too mad at him. But at the same time, like I was saying, Burnage and Rob Gronkowski are like 1 fantasy point separating the two, so I lucked out in that respect. But when you're looking at where Ben Watson is, yeah, he's not in the top 15. Or maybe where is he? I'm past him. Yeah. Oh, well, he's higher than I thought he was. He's in the top 12. So, but that's really off the strength of 1 week. There's a couple players who are gonna pass him. Gates is gonna pass him. He's being utilized in the office. Rodgers is gonna pass him, probably. I would say Rodgers is probably the better play going forward. Just because of how often Green Bay throws. And he's been getting... The only problem with Green Bay is you don't know who's going to be targeted which week. So that makes him risky. But there are other options out there. I think Ladarius Green is being dropped because everybody sees that Gates has come back and he's being utilized heavily. So he's going to be the tight end that you want to have. But in the same vein, it's hard to say. It's hard to say to me to pick up somebody like Ben Watson, who it was a really good week, but I don't see you benching Kelsey anytime in the near future. Just because even though he hasn't been great, he's been pretty consistent recently. 88 yards. He had two bad games back to back against Chicago and Cincinnati, but everything other than that has been solid from a tight end perspective. 5+ fantasy points. The only thing is that he hasn't been getting in the end zone recently, but like few have. When we were talking about the tight end gap, it's over 20 points. It's 15 points between Eifert and Olsen. So your top three tight ends are within 2 points of each other. Everybody else is 15 points or less away. So there's a drastic difference in the tight end position and how they're playing right now. So that's something you have to consider. Also, their bye week is in 2 more games. So there's going to be some players who are probably available that are going to be coming back in that time. The Tampa Bay tight end comes to mind, who had a good start to the season, Austin Stefan Jenkins. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Eifert has played well, but he's in the same kind of boat that I think you would find with. He's had 2 really good games and then just okay games. 9 points, 6.9 points, 10.9 points. The thing that's pushing him up is he's being used more in the red zone. And I don't think Kelsey wouldn't be used more in the red zone. It's just that the Chiefs' offense has been struggling so much. And the Chiefs' offense had that run of games where they were playing just phenomenal defense after phenomenal defense week by week by week. So, also, Eifert's on bye this week, so I mean, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help you that in saying that. I just wouldn't go after Watson because you lost Eifert. I think that for that bye week, there's other players who will probably come up for you, and really, Kelsey hasn't been that bad. And I think he's got a better upside right now just because Kansas City's offense can't get much worse. He had 80 yards in a game where they were just terrible. So they're going to figure something out. Andy Reid's a good coach. They'll figure something out. Like we were talking about how bad New Orleans had been playing, and then all of a sudden Drew Brees and the Saints have a Saints game. So the potential's out there, and especially on Kansas City. I know without Jamal Charles it's a lot harder, but they do have some weapons out there. They have Macklin. Smith is a good ball control quarterback. And he tends to lean on his tight ends. He has since San Francisco when he was with Vernon Davis. So I don't think that you're in a bad position at that position. So I think we've talked about most everything. I guess the last thing to discuss is defense. Couple of defenses that you might have been starting, like the Broncos are on bye, the Packers are on bye. But there are some good defenses available. Actually, I should go to all available. There we go. This, again, is a 10-team league for defenses because in the 12-team league, it's kind of bare. But there are some good matchups in my mind for this week. The Panthers' defense against Philly, I don't think that's in the 12-team league. But, yeah, that's a great play. Even though Philly won the game against the Giants this weekend, or this Monday night, their offense is And it's mainly because Sam Bradford just hasn't been playing well. Like, the Giants' defense probably played, they didn't play a great game, but they played better than the score indicated. They forced 4 turnovers. Bradford had 3 interceptions. They forced a fumble. I mean, Philadelphia, when you look at that alone, that's 8 fantasy points. combined with the fact that I think the Carolina Panthers on the season have the top, or I don't know if he's still top, but going into this weekend, their defense had the most interceptions. What their not their defense as a whole, but they had the player with the most interceptions in the league. Panthers corner. Sorry. Yeah, that's who it is. Josh Norman. Yeah. So, in this league, in the 10-team league, I'm probably pretty. I think I'm in fourth place now. So I have the seventh waiver position in that league. But in my competitive league, I actually have a decent waiver wire position. I think I'm like fifth. Because right now, in the competitive league, I will show you the league right. I think this is the one. Nope, this is not the one. Is this the one? Yes. In this league, I am in the massive tie of 4th to 9th place, where everybody's at 3-3, and I'm only 2 games back from, I'm only 1 game back from second, and I have the chance to play. If I win this week, I'll be in the top 4, and I have a good matchup this week. But my waiver wire position isn't that bad; it's 5th. But this league doesn't have the Panthers defense, unfortunately, because that would be probably my first ad. Just because that's a great matchup. In this 12-team league, I'm probably in the mindset of Minnesota. Pittsburgh at Kansas City is not bad either. Yeah. Yeah, that it's right now, the competitive league, has had a lot of ups and downs. I think in terms of breakdown, I'm 4th. Yeah, the thing is, I think nobody knows about him but us. like I forgot about him too. Like, I'm glad you brought him up, because I was looking at him before Minnesota's bye, and I was like, yeah, I'll leave him because he's going on bye, so I was going to pick him up. Nobody picked him up. Then he went on bye. Then he came off of bye, and I was so concerned about my running back situation because of Justin Forsett being hurt, and his stats being up in the air, and Doug Martin being out, that I just I was focused on getting somebody there. Oh, and North Turner. It is North Turner. Yeah, I'm probably gonna add him this week. Then I'm probably gonna add him this week. I might drop Peyton for him, to be real honest with you. I might drop Peyton for him. But that I'll have to wait on it. I think I can wait on it. I kind of don't want to risk it. But in terms of defenses, I might look at Pittsburgh against Kansas City, just because Kansas City's played so poorly. Yeah. Last week was interesting. Last week on the Friday show, there wasn't much back and forth, but I kind of went through what setting the lineup, and I also did something new on the Friday show where I talked about injury updates. Just going into the weekend, talking about injury updates and seeing who potentially you could replace, who might be a good ad late on Sunday, because so and so's out, or so and so's trending to be out, And I think we were right on pretty much all of our estimates. I think save maybe LaShawn McCoy. I think I said he's probable. Like, I think they had him at listed as questionable. I said McCoy in that game with EJ Manuel starting. Is that a winnable game for them? Do you want to rush McCoy back? I think that was my rationale for saying McCoy may or may not start. But um, other than that, I think everybody we talked about started. Like, I had Justin Forsett in my lineup expecting him to start, and he did. So, but yeah, that's something that we added to the Friday show. But yeah, in terms of defenses, I'm probably gonna go Pittsburgh. Um, yeah, because I don't really like many of these matchups, and the defense that I currently have is on bye. I have the Bengals, so. But that's not your defense is never my first ad. My first ad will probably there's a couple things that I want to do. I want to get a kicker for replacement. I want to probably drop Peyton Manning for somebody. Peyton Manning probably has to be dropped just because I don't want to lose this kicker. He's been top 5, and because of Peyton's struggles, he's actually doing very well. Because they're not getting into the end zone. That's I did that 2 years ago. I did that with what teams did I do it with? I did it with Seattle, and I did it with Seattle. Jets are a good idea. I did it with Seattle, and it might have been Cincinnati. No, it wasn't Cincinnati. It was a high-scoring defense, but it wasn't a good defense. It was the Patriots. It was the Patriots. They were getting a lot of touchdowns off of they were giving up 24 points, but they were also getting a lot of touchdowns. So I played them in certain matchups. But I kept Seattle, and I rolled with 2 defense all season. But what I usually do, and I kind of lucked into this year. I played with I think it was the Panthers for 5 weeks. I considered keeping them, but yeah, they've been really good. They've been really good scoring defense. But I picked the team on the draft based on the matchup, the best matchup I saw week 1. And I don't even think Carolina's matchup was that great, but I always pick defense like last pick in the draft. So, or kicker last pick in the draft, defense second last pick in the draft. So that's how I ended up with the Panthers to start the season. But that season when I rotated 2, it was interesting because there were some weeks that the obvious matchup, like the Patriots would be playing like the Jaguars, and the Seattle Seahawks would be playing like the 49ers. And this was back when the 49ers had, the potency to do something. But the funny thing was that a lot of the times when it looked like one matchup was clearly better, and I played to that matchup, it went the other way. And I think that's part of because of how defense's scoring is set up. You can have a game where like you have a good matchup, and you're just shutting out the other team. Like they score once or twice. Like you'll win 10-24. But because of how they're playing, because of the team doesn't give up a lot of sacks, or the ball's out of their hands, or they just run too much. Like, I think Jacksonville's problem was they just literally handed the ball off all game long. And Seattle didn't get far enough ahead that they could stop doing that. That they only ended up with like 6 or 7 points. Whereas New England, scored two touchdowns on defense that week. So it's just I feel like the two defense setup is gonna give you headaches. Um, I it worked out really well later in the season when you when everybody in the playoffs is also streaming defenses. That's when it was really beneficial that year because I had two quality defenses that I could go to. Especially because Seattle had like a great like they went on the road to a great cold weather game that you knew there was going to be no points for, and it was snowing and there was blizzard and it was going to be great for them. Um, so or no, that was Detroit. That was Detroit who I played. Yeah. But that was a different league. But I'm thinking of like later in the season, there are potentials to just start a team because the weather is going to be horrible and nobody's going to be able to do anything. So those are the kind of things that I look for late in the season. But going into the playoffs, it was great having two very good defenses to switch between. Um, yeah, but that's kind of what I was looking for that week, and yeah, I think we went through everything. I don't do kickers because y'all know how to get kickers, but I guess that's it. Uh, and we'll talk about matchups on Friday, but there's a couple of interesting ones going forward. Like we talked about the Cowboys, what the Cowboys are going to be doing. Um, that's a good. The Jets Patriots are a good game. Uh, Injury news on the Steelers will update Friday. Bills will update Friday. And the Monday night game is Ravens Cardinals. So Cardinals defense kind of wasn't great this past weekend, so I feel like they'll have a rebound game on Monday night with a longer time to prepare. But we'll talk about that Friday. But I appreciate you guys stopping by. Thanks, Drinking, for always being here and providing really good conversation and content. And I'll let you know on Friday. On Friday, I'll definitely make note of it because he's definitely somebody on mine. But I'm gonna get off right now. We had another good show, another hour-long show. So, and I'm sorry about the technical problems early on. The past time we've been since I stopped and started the stream, not a single drop frame. So not sure what that was. Yeah, but see you guys Friday. If I don't see you, have a great fantasy week. Drinking, stay cool, man. And I will talk.